Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David, your reliable source for sensible opinions on anime and manga. And after nearly a year-long absence, today I am excited to announce that the anime versus manga series is finally back. With that said, I can't think of a better way to hype up the return of this series than to cover another series that was not only the epitome of hype, but also of massive controversy, which was the anime adaptation of Record of Ragnarok. Now I know that a lot of people had plenty of things to say about this anime when it first aired, but instead of parroting all the negativity that's already been said, what I want to do here is cut through all of the bull once and for all and get into what exactly went right and what went wrong when Record of Ragnarok was adapted into an anime. And since this series is all about the final battle between God and man, I'm going to be treating this particular anime versus manga much like a real fight by taking a look at each battle adapted in the anime and determining whether the anime or manga did each battle justice. There were 3 battles that took place in the first season of the anime, and so there will be 3 rounds in this video, and the majority winner of these rounds will be crowned the victor of this anime versus manga. I will not be spoiling the outcomes of these fights in this video, but what I will be doing instead is taking a look at how Record of Ragnarok presented each fight and examining how well the anime adapted the moving parts that made up each fight. So on that note, the very first battle that took place in Record of Ragnarok was Thor, the Norse god of thunder, versus the mightiest warrior of the 3 kingdoms, Lu-Bu. So, without further ado, let's get ready to rumble! So if you're not familiar with the plot of Record of Ragnarok, it's literally just about humanity getting one final chance to prove their worth to continue existing by battling the gods that were determining the fate of humanity in a tournament made up of 13 humans and 13 gods in one-on-one battles to the death. With such a simple plot, I came into the anime adaptation with the expectation that the animation must be top-notch and that it must be able to match the quality of the manga or even surpass it, because seeing anything less would make watching this series very pointless since it's so focused on the battles. So after watching the entire anime, the first discovery that I wanted to share with you guys is that the animation for this series turned out to be very inconsistent throughout the show, and that there were very apparent animation problems during the most important moments in the story that all started in the very first fights between Thor versus Lu-Bu. Although this series is all about the battles, Record of Ragnarok has many references to mankind's historical figures, mythology, and folklore, which may be daunting for people who are not familiar with these references, but Record of Ragnarok dodges this problem by spending a lot of time familiarizing the audience with the background and accomplishments of each fighter during their battles. Learning more about the past of these fighters like Thor and Lu-Bu was actually quite fascinating to me and something that I did not expect to enjoy, since I initially thought this series was just going to be all about action. But this information actually helped a lot in raising the emotional stakes of each fight, and also raising the overall hype levels of every signature move each fighter performed. With that in mind, the way in which the anime presented this information would also be vital in the enjoyment of each fight. But unfortunately, the way in which the anime presented Thor's accomplishments was quite simply disappointing. Thor was the very first fighter we got to learn more about in this series, and the anime completely botched it by presenting his past in a way that essentially looked like a grade school slideshow.
No! You're doing this all!
I get that the animators were probably trying to present Thor's past like it was an ancient, old-timey storybook, but the animation to me just looked so bad because this scene just went on way too long using this specific style of animation, and it didn't highlight well enough the awesome power of Thor. This animation decision got even more confusing when Lu Bu's past was brought up and it was presented in a normal animation style, which was so much better than whatever the animators were trying to accomplish with Thor's past. The bad animation right out of the gate was really a surprising and brutal jab to the face that didn't help the case for the anime winning this round. But luckily, the rest of this fight didn't have any terrible animation issues that I could find. There were some moments during this fight that were actually quite enjoyable to see, such as Thor charging up his swing attack and the final clash between these two fighters. But even though the fight itself was enjoyable to watch, the overall quality of the animation was just passable and didn't blow me away. As a matter of fact, reading about this fight in the manga was actually just as enjoyable, if not even more so, since it didn't have any issues that detracted from the experience like I found in the anime. For the record, the anime did a pretty good job at keeping the story the same as the manga during all of the battles, which I will admit is very nice for people who prefer to experience a new series by watching the anime. But there were a couple of changes that I noticed which just made reading the manga a better experience for me. Before this fight started, during the very first episode, there were actually 2 scenes cut out and changed that massively contributed to my differing perceptions of the series when I was reading the manga compared to watching the anime. The first change was when Zeus was accepting the challenge from Brunhilde to battle humanity, and in the anime, Zeus was just getting pumped up for the battle to come when he accepted the challenge, while in the manga, Zeus was so pumped up that he actually crushed the dragon he was sitting beside with his bare hand. And that was the very first sign for me that this series was going to get very violent in the future and helped set the proper tone for this series. The other scene that was cut out that didn't make it into the first episode was when Brunhilde was walking through the hallways after the gods accepted her challenge, and she was being harassed by a demon named Incubus, who got completely obliterated by Thor after smashing him into pieces with one swing of his hammer, which was such an unexpected moment, but also an incredible introduction to one of the fighters of the tournament. Now, I know that these 2 scenes happened outside of the Thor versus Lu Bu fight, but the reason why I mentioned these 2 moments is because it highlighted my favorite parts of reading the manga, which was how much more detailed the illustrations of gore and violence were in the manga compared to the anime. And I also loved how the character portraits in the manga really did a great job at portraying how intimidating these fighters were. Now, while the animation during the fight itself wasn't bad at all, the bad animation scene during Thor's accomplishments reveal really put a strain on the rest of the anime's momentum when it presented this battle, and I just felt like the anime also couldn't match the brilliant illustrations in the manga, which just made reading this fight for me a better experience. Out of all the battles shown during the first trailer for Season 1 of Record of Ragnarok, Adam vs. Zeus was probably the fight fans of the manga were the most anticipated to see being adapted, and after watching the anime, I understood why it had so much hype behind it. Zeus, the Greek god of thunder, versus Adam, the first human to ever exist, was quite exciting to watch because of the clever way in which the story twisted Adam's origin of being created in the image and likeness of God and using it to give him creative abilities that I never would have thought of. This fight to me was honestly my favorite one out of the 3 because the story made an innocent looking human like Adam a legitimate threat to Zeus, who was most likely the most powerful god in the series. and the emotional stakes hitting me out of nowhere near the end of this fight made it so much better. There were a lot of moments during this fight that I was actually glad to have seen being animated and made watching this fight fun to watch, such as witnessing Zeus's epic entrance, which was a thing of beauty.
Wait, this melody, could it be? Why, it's Slayer on the G-string!
Amazing!
A celestial performance fit for a god.
What can I say? This song always gets me pumped. Oh, yeah!
Scenes where Adam's past was revealed was also very enjoyable to watch as well, since they were so colorful and enchanting to see animated.
Once upon a time, ages ago, Adam lived his days in the paradise of Eden, among the animals. He enjoyed a life of comfort, basking in the endless bounty of nature. But these days would soon end.
Another thing that I liked about the anime was that it did its best to animate the intense, action-focused parts of the fight, such as when Zeus and Adam were constantly trading rush attacks against each other. But unfortunately, the good news stops there when the anime once again let me down with its animation, but this time it was during the conclusion to this battle. I'm not going to spoil the outcome of this fight for those of you out there who haven't seen it yet, but let's just say that there was a point during the fight where Adam was reaching his limits against Zeus, and in his final stand, Zeus and Adam were going toe-to-toe, unleashing any last-ditch attack they could muster to take each other down, and this was supposed to be the most intense part of the whole fight. However, instead of seeing a brilliant display of animation to match the intensity, the anime once again became a slideshow that robbed fans of a satisfying conclusion to this legendary battle. I would have loved to have given this round to the anime since it did a great job at animating 90% of the fight, but how it concluded this epic battle left a bitter taste in my mouth that I simply could not let slide, since this was one of the best battles in the series, and to end it that way was frankly unforgivable. Since the manga, on the other hand, didn't have any issues and in fact demonstrated its superiority with awesome illustrations of the most intense moments of this fight, I will be declaring the manga the winner of this round. The final battle to cap off this series also happened to be when the anime finally stepped up its game and showed that it had just as much potential to be just as good as the manga. Although there was a slight problem once again when the anime, for some reason, did not animate certain parts of the beginning of introducing this battle. Luckily, it wasn't after the battle began, which is why I will let this problem slide since it didn't affect any moments during the actual fight. As for what I thought about the fight itself, I personally enjoyed the underlying message of Kojiro always being humble, pushing himself to face greater challenges, and always improving even in the face of constant defeat, which was ultimately why, even though Kojiro was dubbed history's greatest loser, Kojiro was also still considered the greatest swordsman in this series, and a formidable match for Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea. I'm not sure what happened during this battle for the animators to finally put in a solid effort to animate the whole fight properly, but I love that the anime animated all of Poseidon's intense rush attacks, and there were some cool scenes that I enjoyed watching as well, such as Kojiro's past fight with another swordsman named Musashi, and the end of this fight was incredible to watch too. The anime actually did a very solid job of adapting this fight from the manga, since there were no significant story changes that I could spot, which means that in a surprising turn of events, I'm going to have to give this final round to the anime, since it did a good job of animating this battle, and I actually liked watching this battle more than reading about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have finally reached the conclusion to this intense battle of anime versus manga, and I will be officially declaring the manga as the victor for the first season of Record of Ragnarok. As you all saw, this battle did not bode well for the anime at all, since the manga had incredible illustrations from the very beginning to match and surpass the inconsistent animation, and the anime didn't have any great comebacks to give itself a fighting chance at keeping up with the manga. Had the anime shown at least one moment that blew away my expectations, I'm sure we could have at the very least looked at a draw, but the anime ultimately did an average job at adapting the manga, even though it kept the story consistent, and the parts which every fan wanted to see nailed, which was the animation, was what ultimately led to the downfall of the anime and gave the manga an easy W. Even though the first season of the anime may have failed today, I still am actually looking forward to watching Season 2 of Record of Ragnarok and seeing if it could sort out its past weaknesses and make a comeback that will satisfy fans next time, since I'm sure that we all want the anime adaptation to succeed, since this is such an amazing series. So if you wanted to read the Record of Ragnarok manga for yourselves, a couple of volumes have already been released at the time of this recording that you can buy and read now. But there is an app called Manga that has all the volumes fully released, which I personally use to read the manga from my phone. I'm not a sponsor though, so I'm just going to warn you guys that the Manga app may not be the preferred method to read this manga, since I had a lot of problems reading it for free on the app, and I had to pay for it to get a better experience. So use it at your own discretion. That is going to be it for me today, guys. So thank you all for watching this video, and I hope that you all enjoyed the return of anime versus manga. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on this video so that it can reach more people who haven't seen it yet. And also, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the anime if you watched it, or any other thing that you found interesting in the video. Please be sure to subscribe as well, since we are still trying to reach the 1,000 subscribers goal, and if we do hit that goal before the end of this year, I will be rebooting my Twitch channel, and I will be streaming for 1,000 minutes for my first stream back in celebration of hitting the goal. Once again, thank you all for watching the video, and now I'll see you all on the other side.